Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald, who is gracing us with his presence today after a just disappointing, heartbreaking, whatever analogy you want to use, national championship game last night. Houston, look, I'm not – y'all know me. I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. Houston gagged this one away. They absolutely gagged it away. I know Cougs fans, you're going to be mad at me, but you know deep down that was your game to win, and you didn't. So we're going to break all of that down for you guys today, and maybe what's next. Just talk about the actual game and what happened in this game. I got my man Fitz here with us to go through it. Fitz, first off, how you doing, my man?
I'm great. I took a weekend off, celebrate the 35th anniversary, feeling good. Looking like crap, but that's who I am. That's just, I've never been an attractive man. Okay, I'm going to change the topic. And that was a great basketball game, and probably the most painful loss as a viewer of a game not involving a team about whom I care. I mean, right. I care about Houston, but it's not my team. It's just the Big 12. I hurt for the Big 12. I hurt for Kelvin Sampson. I hurt for those players. Because they did so much so right, and then the last 2.5 minutes.
Man, brutal. We'll get into it. Again, before we do, remember, everybody, like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in that comment section like you guys always do, and always hit that notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. I thought at the end of the game, when the game ended, and they had that shot of Kelvin Sampson just standing there, not looking or not moving.
Stunned.
I thought that was pretty indicative of how the last 2.5 minutes were. He just literally could not believe what he was seeing. And his reaction was, I can't believe it. And he couldn't move. He didn't blink. I don't even know if he was breathing, Fitz. I felt bad for him, but unfortunately, we had seen Houston do that to a lot of basketball teams this year. You know, I even tweeted out, I said, hey, 3:24 to go. This is Houston's time. This is when Houston does their thing. We had seen it all year long in the Big 12, is that, hey, when the games get tight, Houston doesn't blink. Well, last night, unfortunately, Fitz, they blinked. Let's kind of break down the ways here a little bit. First off, they shot horrible. I mean, absolutely horrible. I mean, 32% for the game. I mean, first of all, for them to even be in the game shooting 32% is a miracle. And it's not like, well, they shot 32% from the floor, but they shot, 43% from three. No. They shot 24% from three.
Worse.
So it was even worse. So they could not make any shots. My analogy of it, Fitz, I'll get what you think, is that once Florida figured out, hey, we just need to block out on the defensive end. If we box out and keep Houston off the offensive boards, we can get back, not only get back in the game, we can win the game because they can't make any shots.
Yeah, they needed those second chance points a lot. And, you go back a game to the semifinals, they came out shooting the ball like crap, and they warmed up and settled in. I kept waiting, and I thought they'd gotten there, and then it went back to missing shots. It was painful to watch. And boy, that image you mentioned of Kelvin Sampson is going to stick with me for a long time. I almost felt like he's a master architect who poured his life into a project, which was this team, and had constructed it precisely to what he wanted. They could do exactly what he thought they needed to do on both ends of the floor to win a national championship. And then it fell over in a storm.
Yeah.
And he can't explain it. It's not how it was constructed. It fell apart under pressure it had withstood many times before. And this time, on a big day, it just came apart. It was difficult to watch. But yeah, the rebounding, really became a big part of this because Florida said, nope, we're cutting you off from those second chances.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just started climbing back in the game because Houston's double-digit lead just evaporated.
Yes. I mean, how I describe it is Houston got out Houstoned. Is that we seen Houston take the fight to teams, and a lot of those teams wilt. Florida did not. Florida actually in the second half, they matched it. I mean, they got down double figures, and then they started digging in defensively. And that's usually what we see a Houston team do is dig in defensively. Now, I'm not saying that Houston was bad defensively. It's not like Florida shot the lights out. They didn't. But Florida actually out-rebounded Houston in the basketball game, which you look and you think, man, Houston got all those offensive rebounds, especially early. How is that possible? Well, you think in the second half, how many second chance points did Houston have? It wasn't many. I go because they kept missing, and Florida kept getting the rebound. That's where the difference was. And without Houston being able to get those offensive rebounds, they couldn't do much in the second half. And it's kind of what I mentioned. We have seen down the stretch, we've seen Houston over and over and over again, Fitz, just play some of the best basketball that we've seen them play in the last 5 minutes of games. They just, when the game gets tight, they get tougher. And it was the exact opposite. For them to not even get a shot the last two possessions, it was weird because, first of all, I feel so bad for Emmanuel Sharp. I mean, those two plays are going to haunt him for the rest of his life.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'm sure you probably did the same thing. Just like I heard Jay Will say it today, Seth Greenberg on ESPN. I said the same. Even my wife said the same thing. On that drive, the second to last possession, she yelled out, "Where the hell is he going?" I'm like, I don't know. I literally
Where was he going?
No, it was weird.
He just split the defense and drove to the baseline, and nothing was there to be open.
No. I don't know, Fitz. I saw it, and I'm like, so you're going to try to dribble through not only your guy, there's another guy behind you, and then there's a guy on the wing and a defender right there. Like, where are you going? There's nowhere to go. And a big defender down low. I just thought, just pass the ball. Just stop and just pass the ball or back it out. Do something. But that's not the play, and it wasn't the play. And then at the end of the game, look, that was good defense by Florida. But fundamental basketball a lot of times comes back to bite you. A pump fake, and he's wide open. Literally, that's all. I mean, they teach you that. One of the very first things they teach you in basketball. Pump fake, dribble to the side. He literally has a wide open three-pointer that you're either going to make or miss. But at least you get the shot up. But for that not to happen and then for the game to end that way, I was sick, Fitz. I was like, oh, my God, he's never going to live that down.
No. And let's come back to this. That was all dictated by Florida's defense.
Absolutely.
Even the drive was the fact that he can't find anywhere to go. So I see something, I'm going here, and like, why? He was he found a gap to go through, and he tried to, and it didn't work. As for that final shot, that was also set up by Florida's defense.
Yep.
They had blocked, I don't know, three-point shots, and I mean not deflected, blocked.
Yep.
So he had that in his head. But I'm telling you what, Big B, you played a lot of hoops. You got to get that ball up in the air. You just do. At that point, even if you're just throwing it up, trying to bounce it off the backboard to give someone a chance, you're in no man's land. And he just reacted and did something. Can you imagine the horror in his mind as he realized that ball is bouncing, the clock's running, and I can't touch that ball or it's a turnover?
Right. Oh,
you got to get that ball up over the top of that. Even if you have no prayer making it, give someone a chance to go get the rebound, get it off the backboard and go get the ball. Because they had enough time for that. It felt like 20 minutes went by before the ball was possessed and the game was called. It just was rolling there. I don't even know who it was from Houston, like hesitated to go after it. Probably he's like, my teammate's going to pick it up, but not realizing he can't. If he had reacted immediately, he might have gotten the ball. What a nightmare scenario. Yeah. And Kelvin Sampson saw his beautiful team that was so well constructed, so put together for this moment, fall apart with 5 turnovers in the last 2.5 minutes of the game. I don't know what they had for the game, like 8.
Yeah,
Something.
they did.
5 they went 3 turnovers for almost the entire game and then 5. I feel for him. I was really hoping for Kelvin to get it, but man.
Yeah, I was too. Here's an unfortunate thing, at least from my perspective. You mentioned at the end of the game, they had the last possession. I thought it was a mistake by Kelvin Sampson. They called a timeout. That's not the mistake. They didn't go quick.
Yep.
Look, it's not like the score's tied and you can go for the last shot. That wasn't it. You're down 2. You got to score or give yourself time to get an offensive rebound, or if you miss a foul, you've got to get 2 possessions out of that. You have to do that. I mean, that's coaching 101. Unless you're just going to say, we're going to take a last-second 3, which that wasn't the play, because Cryer got shut off. And again, I don't want to blame him because I think the play was probably set up for him. Then he gets the ball and he's like, well, I'm not open. I'm going to pass it to a guy that is open. I get it. That's what you're supposed to do. But you got to you got to go quick, go downhill. Kelvin Sampson's been in this game long enough to know that, number one. Number two, the way that the game was going to be called, and we'll get to this officiating because I thought it was some of the worst officiating that I think I've seen in my entire life. Not that it was one-sided. I don't believe that. But the way that the game was called, it literally could have been the worst that I've ever seen in a national championship game in my entire life. It was horrible, but we'll get to that. Having said that, I just thought you have to give yourself 2 possessions. You can't, unless you're going for the last second 3, which Houston wasn't doing. Get downhill, try to get a foul, get the ball up on the rim. You got all those offensive rebounders. Go try to get it, do something. But they didn't do anything, and they just waited. But again, you've mentioned it a couple of times, Florida's defense. Florida's defense made them do something else. I thought if you're going to do a pick and roll, don't do it on the wing. Do it from the top of the key. I thought that was a mistake. Look, great. You're going to screen and roll. You're going to get a pick and roll. Do it from the top. Get the big guy on you. You do it from the wing. You're bringing too many other elements into play. You got the sideline, another defender. Do it from the top of the key. Get the one-on-one matchup, and then go from there. They didn't do that, and it was a disaster. I just didn't think the last play, the last sequence for Houston was well designed, Fitz.
Well, you pointed out something there. And let's not let Kelvin Sampson off. He's a brilliant coach. One of my favorite of all time. I wanted him desperately to win that. So he had that in his resume. For so many things, so many reasons he deserved that. Also to kind of stick a thumb in the eye of the NCAA for that absurd length of his show cause where he couldn't coach. It was just ridiculous for what he did. But I come back to this. We want to blame the players for not executing, for turning the ball over. I think the biggest turnover might have been Kelvin Sampson not trying to go 2 possessions for 1.
Yep.
At that timeout, as you mentioned, I don't know what is 44, 45 seconds left.
Play it out.
You design something off the sideline, and if it doesn't work, then you pull it out, and
that's right.
You go with what he ended up doing. But you try to get that ball, and if you can attack and catch him off guard and get a lay-in, all of a sudden you're going to have the last possession and the pressure's back on them because the game's tied. And I just thought, what are you doing here? Why are you holding for a last possession that isn't even a last possession? You're going to give them a chance to win it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at all, Big B. I didn't. I think he fumbled the bag big time on that. And that one's going to sit with Kelvin for a long time.
It will.
Good coaches do little things to put their teams at an advantage, whether it's an out of bounds play or something they've scouted out. I thought Kelvin, and I hate to say this because I have so much respect for him, I thought he failed his team at that moment as much as his team failed him.
Yep. I mean, you could see it. And I said it the other day. I was like, sometimes when you get tight, your players will get tight.
Yep.
And it seems like that happened with Duke the other day. It seemed like John Shire got tight, held the ball, said, you know what, we're up 10. We're just going to it's 10 minutes to go. We're trying to get to the finish line. And it backfired. Same thing here. I thought Kelvin Sampson had an opportunity. It seemed like he just overthought it himself. which I mean, look, you got a veteran team. Those guys know what to do. They know what to do. Just tell them 2 for 1. Let's get it. Let's go and let's figure it out. And they didn't do that. And I don't know. I think you're right. I think he failed him at that point in time, which is unfortunate because he'd coached so good all year long. And Houston was so good. But that's why I come back to it. Houston got out Houston, because if you're going to tell me that Houston is going to shoot 32% and get out rebounded, I'm going to tell you they lost. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, if you just said before the game started, Houston is literally going to shoot 32% from the field and they're going to get out rebounded and they're not going to play good down the stretch, well, okay, they're going to lose the game. Well, they lost the game. It's that simple. I thought there were plenty of opportunities, but let's get to this officiating, Fitz. I just can't with officiating. Look, I've been one of the biggest proponents in changing who is officiating, why they're officiating. And here's the thing. I don't think that either team got an unfair shake. Or should I say, I think both teams got jobbed by the officials. Let me clarify that. I think both teams got jobbed because in the first half, it was like a bloodbath. I mean, literally, they called 4 fouls the entire half, and you could choke a man, punch a man. You could do whatever you wanted. They let them play. In the second half, and it started immediately.
Yep.
25 fouls got called. Well, hold on a second. What are you talking about? Now, granted, I will give Florida players a better job or more credit for they adjusted quicker than what Houston players did. But you can't tell me that in the first half, they let all of that contact go, and then in the second half, they didn't let anything go. I'm like, just be consistent. Let the players understand what's going on and do it throughout the basketball game. Don't change up at halftime because you looked at the box score and the score sheet and you're like, oh, wow, we only called 4 fouls. We got to make up for that in this half. Or somebody called down and say, hey, man, this game is way too physical. Clean it up. Okay, great. They cleaned it up. Well, that's your own fault for allowing it to get that far in the first place. I just thought it was horribly officiated, man. I did.
I'm with you. I think the state of college basketball officiating is going to ruin the game. They got to fix it.
Yeah.
And again, you can, if you're a Houston fan, you can point to the late possession where there are multiple obvious travels on Florida that weren't called. And Doug Sermons waited to make sure he got a foul in there before he called anything. He bugs the living crap out of me, Big B. He always has, because Doug Sermons is the epitome of the current state of college basketball officiating. Fundamentals have broken down. You officiate outside of your area. You basically showboat with calls across the court and stuff. And you insert yourself into the game in very obvious ways. The old adage with officiating is, guys, you got to adjust to how they're calling the game. And that's exactly right. They did. And then the officials changed how they were calling the game. True. Not a little bit, completely flipped it. That's horrific officiating.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, we were consistent each half. That's not how it works.
No. Just
do your job. I think officiating sometimes overthinks things. This is a national title game. We got to let them play.
Mm-hmm.
This is a national title game. It got too rough. We got to choke them. We got to choke this off. We got to stop this. How about you just call the game?
Just call the game.
If it gets too physical, call it really tight for a little bit. Get it back on track. But again, I think the state of current college officiating is they have a lack of consistency, but they also want to insert themselves and make the big call.
Yeah.
TV's done that. The fact we know Doug Sermon's name and the other officials' names, everyone knows the officials that work their conference. It's made them celebrities. And thus some of these guys have got massive egos and they think it really is about them. Also here, I got to say this, Big B, you know what, NCAA games, and I probably conference tournaments too, you have a fourth official sitting at the scorer's table as an alternate. Why isn't he the replay official? Why can't he, on most of those replays, put his hand up, say, I'm going to do a quick review. Yeah, that's obviously off Tech or off Houston. That's obvious. Let's go. Let's play. But no, they got to come over. The head officials got to swivel the monitor around. They got to start playing. No, if it's really close, if you can't tell, yes, do that. Let the officials on the court decide. But that alternate official should be doing quick reviews. Nope, it's going that way. It's going that way. It's obvious he's part of the team. It's crazy.
But I don't think that he is. I think that's part of it, Fitz. I think he's the alternate. And this is a referee thing that they've argued this, because if he changes a call that happened on the court, then it's bad blood with the other guys that are actually on the court. Well, so those are the guys that have to actually return the call or overturn the call and change it because, okay, yeah, it happened this way. I missed it, yada, 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 versus this guy that's sitting over there that's not really part of the team. Now he's judging me. Well, nobody's judging you. All he's doing is, hey, here's the play. It went off of him. We're going the other direction. You called it this way. It needs to go that way. No big deal. It happens.
You got it right. Let's go.
Yeah. I don't understand.
I thought the officials with out of bounds calls did a surprisingly good job. They really didn't overturn many. They went and checked, and it's like, yeah, that's obviously off of him. It happens really quick live, and then you slow it down and go, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And in fact, the goaltend was a perfect example of make a call.
Make a call.
Now you can't go back and review that.
Correct. Just make a call. Something. Which was odd to me because they call everything, and that they decided, no, we didn't. It's kind of like the out front. Richards is near the end of the game, and it looked like Cryer stepped on his foot, but the two officials out front that were looking right at it didn't call it. A guy that's 40 feet away under the basket is who calls the foul. And I'm like, there's no way you saw that. No way, first of all, that you even should have been looking there. Like, why are you looking out front when you have all these bodies underneath that we've been calling a foul if they breathe close to each other? All of a sudden, you're looking 40 feet away. I'm like, come on, what is going on? It just, again, like you mentioned, it just got so one-sided one way and so one-sided the other on the physicality. And if you believe that the game was way too physical in the first half, I'm not going to argue with anybody that believes that. I just won't, because I thought it was crazy physical. Now, I like that, so I didn't mind it. Hey, let the guys play. Let them decide on the court. But in the second half, they just started doing the same thing, and all the refs did was just called fouls. And the guy, like I said, Florida did a better job adjusting, but I thought they could have let some stuff go, especially since you let everything go in the first half. I mean, in the first half, Fitz, it had to be obvious. Like, you had to grab a guy's arm while he was shooting to call a foul. But in the second half, hey, you're going off a screen. If I just step out there and you just bump into me, you touch me, we're calling fouls. And I'm
crazy.
Like, man,
this is nuts.
This is crazy. I understand how the game looked ugly in the second half because the players couldn't get a flow because the refs kept blowing the whistle.
Well, and then eventually they got to just calling little ticky-tack stuff. They weren't cleaning up the game. They just kept going down this road of blowing their whistle. But, that foul you mentioned explains exactly where one of the breakdowns in college officiating is. That guy's got responsibilities on the baseline, and it's not watching that.
No.
The two guys out front, particularly the one, has that responsibility. And once in a while, you're going to see something from a different angle than the other guys. But I guess my problem there is you're not supposed to have your eyes there.
No.
There could be something going on in your area of responsibility you're totally ignoring. But again, that was the big look at me showboat call. that referees love to make. I'm running in from way over here because I'm the only guy who saw this. Look at me. Drives me insane, Big B. God.
Yeah, it was bad. But other than that,
trust your official mates that they're making the call. They saw it better than you.
yes, absolutely. They saw it better. They're right there. Just let it go. Just police your area. Police your area. But yeah, unfortunately, look, I was all prepared, Fitz, to come in here today with the sunglasses on again. I was going to come in. I was feeling good. But unfortunately, it just, like I said, it just didn't work out for Houston. They're snake bitten. They're a program that's snake bitten. You can't say anything other than that. First of all, they've kind of been the model of consistency over the last 4 to 5 years. Elite Eight, Final Four, Sweet 16, and that championship game. But they can't get over that hump. And I'm like, man, what is it going to take? But you're right. This was Kelvin Sampson's masterpiece. It was his masterpiece. He's got an old, laden team, veteran team, athleticism. They can shoot the basketball. Now, you wouldn't know that if you watched last night, but this is what had been, kind of the hindrance of his teams in Houston in the past, is that they couldn't score. They couldn't shoot. This team could. And yet, when it mattered, they couldn't make a shot. They got out rebounded. And in the last 2.5 minutes, Fitz, it completely fell apart. Just things that you come to know about a Houston basketball team, especially this Houston basketball team. They just couldn't do it when they needed to. And it was unfortunate, not just for Houston, for their fans, for Big 12 fans. And I even think a lot of college basketball fans, it's kind of what you said. People like Kelvin Sampson. Like, now the people in Indiana don't like Kelvin Sampson, which is understandable. But if you really take a deep dive into what happened there, everything that he did was legal 2 years later, not 15 years later, 20 years later. 2 years later, you could do everything that he was accused of doing. So it's not like he was out there paying guys and stuff. He wasn't doing that. Well, I say that, like, you know me, I believe everybody pays everybody. So I'm that part. But he wasn't, giving $1,000 handshakes and sending UPS packages full of money to somebody. Phone calls and texts. That's what
during an impermissible time.
Yes.
And I'm going to look right in the camera and say this, that every big coach does.
Everyone.
Every single one was doing that.
Yep.
And they made an example of him.
Exactly.
They picked him.
An example of him because he was at Indiana.
And, I'm sure they had indications that other things were going on. So instead of accusing him of that, they just over penalize him for 5 years out of coaching for that.
Correct.
When everyone in the industry knows we're all doing it and it's going to end up changing here pretty soon. It was weird. And he handled it like a man. He went to the NBA, paid his dues, stayed an extra year, in fact, and then said, okay, taking over Houston, and we're going to build this thing. And by God, he built it into something brilliant. Just one blink short of a national title. Just one mistake short of a national title.
It's tough.
I hope he doesn't retire. I hope he sticks with it.
I do too. They got a really good team coming back next year, especially with the guys that they have coming in. It'll be younger, but we'll see. But yeah, I don't want him to quit. I did have a feeling, though, if they won the national title, that he would retire.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like he rode right off into the sunset, retire right there in Houston. They would love him forever, which they probably do anyway, because he's a good guy. He's a great coach. He's a better human being than he is a coach. But I don't know now. I don't know. Maybe he's like, I'm not stopping until I can get over this hump. I'm not.
And he's not a bad dancer.
He's not, is he?
Kelvin's got some moves.
He does. And he's not a spring chicken either.
No, he's not. What an incredibly likable guy. What an incredibly enjoyable team to watch him. I covered a game in which K-State was Sasquatch State for one game. The things he said just kill me. Sasquatch State and the Toy Poodle League. K-State lost by 30 to them. And look, K-State didn't play well, but mostly Houston was a damn machine.
Yes.
They defended flawlessly. They shot the ball well. It was a thing of precision and beauty. And that's the way his team can play. And that's the way they played in the semifinal against Duke in the final minutes. In fact, they played that way most of the second half. Duke was just that good.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all fell apart at the last game.
Brutal. Any game, what did Florida led for a minute and 19 seconds? A minute and 19 seconds. I think that's what it was that Florida led in this game. Houston led the entire way until they didn't. So, well, Fitz, thank you for joining us today. Bitter day. Basketball is over. But we'll get started. We'll still keep pumping these things out for everybody, man. We got a lot to talk about here in the offseason. So I appreciate everybody, sticking with us through the changeover from football to basketball. It means a lot. So we'll get out as many videos as we possibly can during the offseason. So stick around. We'll be around. Appreciate you guys. And until tomorrow, we will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.